Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Breckland Planning for today. Could I first of all start with general housekeeping, which is the fact that fire exits for this meeting. There are two which are quite clearly marked on this wall here. There's another one at the end of the corridor where the lavatories are, and of course the entrance door where you came into the building. Could I ask all mobile devices and telephones and what have you to be switched to silent so it doesn't disturb the meeting? Procedure, when an item is called, I have a list of speakers and I would ask you to come and sit on the right hand side, and I will tell you when you are able to speak. Your times are normally limited to around 3 minutes unless I've deemed otherwise. When your 3 minutes is up, even in your mid conversation, you'll hear that bell, which doesn't mean shut up. It means can you just come to a little bit of an end and sum up, and not for the next 15 minutes, as some people do. Not looking at anyone, Vice Chairman. Good, that's gone straight. That's gone happily deaf today. Good, and let me introduce my team for the day. On my left-hand side, I have Mike Horn, who's solicitor to the council. And at the far end of the table, there is Simon Wood, Director of Planning and Building Control. On my right-hand side, I have Rebecca Collins, who's Head of Development Management. And we also have Matthew Blackie, who's one of our planning officers, Hugh Coggles, who's our Tree and Countryside Officer. And we have Julie Britton here, who is here on Democratic Services and actually minuting this meeting as well. I hope that's everyone. We also have Chris, who was our usher for the day, who saw you in. And I think that's it today from what I can see. So if we start the meeting then, item 1 is to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 15th of February 2022. I gather you've all read them and you will give me the okay to sign those off. Agreed? Thank you. Thanks, Julie. Item 2, apologies and substitutes, please. Julie.
Thank you, Chairman. I have 2 apologies from Councillor Roger Attewell and Councillor Harry Clark, but I'm afraid there's no substitutes in attendance. No,
that's okay. We've got a good showing of members today. Declaration of interest and representations received. I will take them as each item is raised. Item 4, Chairman's announcements. Not much, just first of all it's unfortunate she's now not in the room, but which we'll pass the comment on to Fiona Hunter, one of our principal planning officers, is leaving us to pastures new. She's gone back to her sort of hometown to re-kick off her life and chase old boyfriends, I think, something like that anyway. No, I shouldn't say that because she's actually up there with her partner. So, but she might still be chasing old boyfriends. I'm not sure. But yeah, so she's gone back there. And as I've already said, if she's like any of the other planning officers, she may be back. You never know.
I thought you meant chasing old boyfriends.
No, I meant officers that go and leave us in the lurch and then come back again because they realise that we are such a lovely crew here. So I wish her well, and I'm sure you all do the same. And if you see her, say farewell and good luck to her, please. And also, could I also say, which was quite good, that we had a site visit yesterday at Wellingham, and I was really pleased with the attendance, and well done for everyone to make the effort to get there because it was in the middle of nowhere. Item. I know you live there, but you don't live there where the site was. But you understand what I meant by that.
The old days of CV radio, Bateman had the name Omaha because it wasn't nowhere. Yeah.
Well, some people actually got there on time. Yeah. So I thought you were going to say, could I have a CB radio? Because we could have probably talked you in there then.
I don't have a sat nav, and my man with the red flag was off that day.
Yeah, no, they're my funny sat nav things. Okay, thank you. So we move on to item 5, request to defer applications included in this agenda. Rebecca?
Yes, please, Chairman. I would request to confirm items 10A and 10B at Wellingham. This is because we've had some new ecological information come to light that we need the opportunity to review. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So that's come off your agenda, guys. Item 6. Oh, it's people in the back room. If anyone's in the back room is here for Wellingham, it's been deferred because of a late. No, I wouldn't clap. That just means it's not being heard today. But thank you anyway for clapping. That was very nice. I love an audience. But thanks for turning up. I do apologise. You can all go to Tesco's and have a Costa. Not on me though. Pay yourself. Okay, so item 6, urgent business. Do we have any items of urgent business? No. Okay, thank you. So item 7, we've got a local plan update. Over to you, please, Simon.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of things to update. One is local plan related, the other is tangentially related to it. As members will probably be aware, there is a report going to Cabinet on Monday, the 21st of March, which will seek to kick off the call for sites, which is the first process in the local plan update. And that will be a 6-week process, probably commencing in the second or third week of April, once we've got it all set up and running. We also have another report on the Cabinet on 21st of March in relation to an evidence base produced by Natural England and the Norfolk districts and county councils to seek permission or agreement to adopt a policy that will require developers to pay a tariff on new dwellings granted permission after the policy is adopted. That is to meet the requirements of the habitat regulations assessments and is to deal with the cumulative impact of recreational pressures on European protected sites, and is a legal requirement and something that the council will need to meet. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Kybird.
Will that proposed tariff apply where there's been an outline permission and detail phases come through? Will that apply to those?
There has been legal advice received by the districts and the county council, which indicates that where an outline application has been assessed in respect of recreational impacts, and it is considered that adequate and appropriate mitigation has been made at outline stage, then you cannot deal with it at reserve matter stage. However, if on assessment it is found that that has not been adequately addressed, then yes, you are able to address it at reserve matters stage.
Thank you. Any further questions? No. Thank you very much. Thanks, Simon. We now move on to item 8, which is our TPO, and our Tree and Countryside Officer will join us. And our first item is TPO 2021 number 15 at Dereham, which is Rookery Farm Barns, Elsing Lane. And so we get who set up, and then I'll hand over. There we go. Over to you, please, Hugh.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a TPO served on a single oak tree at Rookery Barns, which is in Dereham. Here's the aerial photograph of the plan. The blacked out tree is a tree that's no longer in situ. T1 marked on the plan is the oak tree, which is subject to the TPO. This is the view taken from the public highway. Again, it shows the tree which has since been removed with T1 in the background. Again, this is a different view of the trees taken from the driveway to the dwellings and the adjacent dwelling. This is a more recent photograph of the tree. Now it's no longer in leaf, showing the sort of overhang and proximity to the dwelling. And again, this is taken so you can actually see the relationship between the tree and the building. The preservation order came about as a request from a member of the public who was of the understanding that the owner was intending to cut down this tree and the adjacent ash tree. In the time that it took to serve the order, the ash tree, which is the tree on the right, showing removed tree, was felled. And the remaining tree, the oak tree, T1, has had the TPO served. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I do apologise. I should have announced you into there. So this is Jason and Gemma Hammond, who wish to speak. Just you, sir? Or? Yep. So Mr. Hammond's got 3 minutes, please. If you could just switch your microphone on. Okay, fine.
The main and most important reason why we are opposing the TPO is due to the safety and well-being of our 2 children. Unfortunately, the location of the tree is less than 3.5 metres away from our children's bedroom. We are all scared that if the tree ever falls, there is a high risk that it will not only cause major damage to the property, cutting straight through the single-storey building, but it would also cause major injury and even possible death to us and our children solely due to the size of the trunk. In addition to this, there are a number of large branches which are overhanging the property, and once again, if these were to fall, it would cause major damage to both the property and our lives. This tree is also having a severe impact on our 7-year-old's mental health and his anxiety. He is scared that the tree will fall and has had nightmares about this happening. When it is windy, he refused to sleep in his bedroom. And should the tree remain, I will have to seek medical help for him. At present, there are no animals living within the tree, and we would like to encourage more wildlife into our garden. So prior to the TPO even being issued on this tree, our plan was to remove the tree and plant additional trees at the bottom of the garden, which would be far enough away from the property. If I was able to pick this tree up and replant it at the bottom of the garden, I would. When we purchased the barn back in July 2021, there was not a TPO in place. May I please kindly ask why, after all this time, during the planning applications and the building stages that commenced back in 2018, 3 years ago, why a TPO has never been placed on this tree during this period? This is a new build property, and I'm sure a number of council officials have attended the site for various reasons on a number of occasions, and nothing has ever been placed on this tree until now. Reading your conclusion report, your only concern for the TPO, your main concern for the TPO, is to be in place because of its amenity. If people wish to go and appreciate trees, there are thousands and thousands of trees in Dereham and multiple places in Norfolk that they can visit, and not our one single tree, which is in a private garden down a private road that no members of the public have access to. Literally on the main road leading to our private driveway, there are 14 trees, which 10 of them are oak trees. You have stated in your report that the tree is young. However, it is already quite large and is set to increase in size, which elevates the risk posed to all our lives and the property even further. Mr. Drew, a local builder, has provided a statement of his concerns of the impact that the tree and roots could have over the next few years, and hopefully you've all got a copy of that and the map. My job as a police officer for the past 14 years is to protect life and prevent harm, and I will do all I can to achieve this and to the best of my ability. We are talking about putting 2 children's life at risk and their mental health over a single tree because of its amenity that the public cannot access. I acknowledge that the tree has been here for several years. However, there is no evidence to say that this tree is safe. I fully believe that the safety and preservation of my family must be put to the forefront of our concerns. I hope you all take the same view and ethics as us as parents. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Well done, sir. It's open to questions from members at all. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could we have the photograph up of the inside the garden next to the property, please? At the back. So, the property on the right, then, is that's your?
Sorry, could you switch your microphone on as well, please?
Yeah. And that's the bedroom there, is it?
That's right, yeah, the bedroom we can see before,
And that's about 3 meters away.
It's
The
less
tree.
than 3.5, I think it's about 3.
Yeah.
So should that,
And the branches are over the top.
that's right, it's a single story, so should it fall down, go straight through the width of the barn?
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions from members at all? No? Oh, Councillor Crane?
I think, thank you, Chairman. I think it's been said before, and perhaps Mr. Coggles can confirm that that tree can be pruned or trimmed to make sure that it's safe. Those, I can see there are overhanging branches and that, but there's no reason why a qualified tree surgeon couldn't maintain that so that it allows A, more light in, and B, any of those big overhanging branches. Would you agree? Would that be suitable?
Yes, I agree that if an application was put in to undertake suitable pruning works, then it would be recommended for approval, yes.
Can I just reply to that?
Fine, if you put your microphone on.
Thank you. I fully understand what you're saying about the branch, but if you see the size of the trunk itself, that it's the trunk that's concerning me even more so. Should that tree fall down, I don't know if I can go up the trunk, it's the size of the trunk, so the trunk would go right through the side of the house, through the side of the I think it's about 5 meters is my the width of the barn. So should that tree fall in that side, it's the trunk I'm more concerned about, not so much the branches.
Okay, thank you. Rebecca?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So I would draw members' attention to paragraph 9.4 of the report to say that there's no information available that there are significant defects with this tree that would suggest that the tree was going to fall at any time. And part of maintaining the long-term health of the tree is those pruning works to ensure that those defects do not appear. So like Hugh, the tree officer, has already pointed out that we would support an application for pruning works to that tree to ensure its long-term health.
Okay, could I just ask Mr. Coggles if you could just explain the principle within the, as the applicant has said, that a TPO is placed upon a tree when it could have been in the past. We're fully aware, it always seems unfair to various people, but this is how the process works. If you could explain that, please, Hugh.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The majority of TPOs are served when there is seen to be, or there is a perceived threat to the tree. So at the planning stage, whilst this building work was undertaken, it wasn't seen that there was a threat to the tree. The tree was shown to be retained as part of the approved planning. So at that point, it wasn't seen necessary to apply a TPO to a tree. We don't go around, or I don't go around as the tree officer looking at trees thinking, oh, that tree's good enough for a TPO, that tree's good enough for a TPO, and putting TPOs on trees. We don't have, you know, we just couldn't do that. Wouldn't be possible. So generally a TPO is served on a tree when we know or we believe there is a threat to the tree. In this instance, a member of the public requested that a TPO was served on the tree after being told that this tree and the adjacent ash tree were going to be cut down.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wilkinson?
Yeah, I'd just like to point out, we do have lots of TPO applications come in here. The height of that tree is, we've had trees before, and the height of that tree, and we've had the base of the trunk a lot bigger at the bottom than it's growing up. That to me doesn't look substantial as it's grown. It's grown up quite quickly. The base is not very wide, and then it gets narrow in the top there. So I can see the possibility of that being destroyed in a storm. And I don't think trimming it would make a lot, wouldn't help at all. I think that trunk doesn't look strong enough to be holding that crown of that tree at the moment. But that's comparing when we've seen other trees when the base has been a lot wider.
Would you wish to comment on that? Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, the trunk and the canopy of the tree is what I would say would be normal for a tree of that age and species. It's a relatively young oak tree. I would estimate probably between 35 and 45 years old. So obviously the trunk isn't going to be as large as as a mature tree that we would see. I would say that a young ish tree like this one, a semi-mature or early mature tree, is easier to maintain at a certain size rather than waiting for the tree to become mature and then trying to make it smaller. While the tree is relatively young and relatively small, it is an easier task, and a task that is probably more beneficial to the tree than waiting for the tree to become fully grown and then trying to make it back to a certain size again.
Okay, no, oh, councillor Kittle Morris.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I see you've given this a rating of 16. Can you remind me what the threshold is between not worth putting a TPO on and putting a TPO on in terms of numbers?
I think it's 11 plus.
So while I'm just double checking something, can I just ask, I sent in a Mr. Drew's report about answering 9.5 about the drains. Has everyone got a letter of that, of his concerns of the impact that I
I think that was
submitted?
gone to the planning
submitted
officers,
to
not
the
necessarily
usher.
to the members. No, members never
I
received
submitted
it.
it before 12 o'clock midday last Friday for everyone to receive a copy of his concerns of the size of the root and the trees. I submitted it.
Yeah, would you have that here?
I've got a report. Yeah, it went to Becky.
Okay.
Becky has.
Well, we haven't received it here.
There's,
So.
well, I've got one copy on that's no good, but I did send this in on Friday for everyone to see.
Okay.
It's from a builder, his concerns of the roots of the structure from
Yeah.
a builder.
We haven't seen the report, we'll have
No.
to defer it to the committee.
Okay.
It's material to the
Yeah,
DPO.
that's what I was thinking, the same thing. Okay. Well, because this report hasn't been received by members and you haven't had a chance to look at it, and neither has our principal planning officer on this one, or our tree and countryside officer, for want of a better thing, I'm afraid I've got no option but to defer this item till the next meeting. Sorry about that, but we didn't receive that report.
Okay,
So there's no decision today. This item's been deferred.
okay.
All right. It
Yeah,
sounds a
thank
bit
you.
odd, but without
Yeah.
us having all the information, I can't let my members
And I
make a
appreciate that,
decision.
and I do appreciate that, but it was sent
Okay.
in at the correct time at the
That's
correct.
fine. Yep, I do
It's with
apologise,
people.
and sorry you've had a slightly wasted journey
Okay.
today. But next time you come, you'll be geared up
Okay.
and ready for it.
Thank you, that's not a
Okay.
problem. Okay then, thank you.
Terrific. Thanks very much. So
Okay,
this
thank you.
item's been deferred. Next item, item 9, TPO 2021 number 18, which is at Garbolisham New House Back Street. I'm not sure if members also received. I had a quite lengthy email from Councillor Chapman and Marion Chapman. You've all received that? Okay, thank you. Okay, over to you then, Hugh, please, on Garbolisham.
Thank you. Okay, well, this TPO is within the conservation area in Garbolisham. The threat came to these trees as a result of a notification from the owner, which was submitted with the intention of felling both trees, a silver birch and an oak tree. As I've discussed with you before, when we have a notification in the conservation area, the council has two choices. We either allow the applicant to undertake the work that they've notified us that they wish to undertake, or we prevent that from happening by serving a preservation order. So a site visit was made by myself to assess the trees. This is the photograph showing T1, which is a mature silver birch, which is at the front of the property, and T2, which is an early mature oak tree, which is at the rear of the property. Sorry, my photograph isn't that great. There's a bit of sun problems, but this is the oak tree in the rear garden, which is approximately 7 meters away from the dwelling. And this is the birch tree, which is at the front. Like I said, this is in the conservation area in Garbolisham on Back Street. Sorry, and that's the photographs that I have. With regards to the tempo score, I've just looked it up. Anything less than 11 is not defensible. Anything over 11 is defensible. But it says anything over 15, 16 plus is certainly merits a TPO, and both of these trees have achieved that score. Thank you.
Do we have questions on this item at all? No. Oh, Councillor Gilbert.
Thank you. Can I ask which came first, the trees or the houses? So the trees were planted after the houses, and now, yeah. What I'm saying is, at times, are we getting to the stage where developers want to optimize the land and perhaps build too close to trees? And, you know, that these problems could be picked up beforehand, and so, you know, rather than wait a few years and then find, oh, that's a bit close to our house because the house has been built too close to the tree.
Thank you. Rebecca, please.
Oh, thank you. Just to remind members, and I completely agree with what you're saying there, Councillor Gilbert, but our current local plan, obviously ENV06 does have a policy about protecting significant trees, and we do that through seeking consultation responses with the tree officer and seeking that development is outside of their RPAs. Now, you know, obviously the distance from buildings is the distance of the RPAs generally, so that doesn't prevent someone at a later date coming in and still wanting to remove that tree, but the impact of those trees in terms of shading and in terms of distance to trees is now covered by a current policy in your local plan.
There we go. No further questions. Okay, thank you. So on this item for Garbaldersham, TPO 2021 number 18, your officer's recommendation is to confirm the order. Do I have a show of hands for confirmation? And that's unanimous. Okay, thank you. That's confirmed. Thank you for your time, Hugh. And while the chair is nice and warm, we're going to go to Stowe Beedon / Breckles, which is Matthew Blackie, who is our officer for this one. This is 3PL 2022-0080, item 11A. And then that's over to you when you're ready, Matthew.
All right, good morning, members. So this planning application is a householder application for an extension to an existing garage to incorporate a pit to facilitate vehicle maintenance. Okay, so here is the location plan. So the site in red is the site itself. So as you can see, you've got the main dwelling here, you've got the existing garage here, and then you've got another outbuilding here, which is going to be demolished to make way for the garage extension. And then the site sits on Mere Road, and it also sits in line with other residential dwellings here. There's also residential dwellings here as well. And so here is the proposed site plan. So as you can see, you've got the main dwelling here, and then this is the existing garage, and this is where the proposed extension is going to be. So it's going to be for a 2-bay garage extension. And here are the existing elevations. So as you can see, you've got a 2-bay existing garage here. And here are the proposed elevations. So again, existing garage here, and then this is where the proposed extension is going to be. Just to confirm that all of the proposed materials will be matching to the existing garage already. And here are the existing and proposed floor plans. So here is the existing garage, and then as you can see, you're going to have the proposed extension here, and this is which is going to incorporate the vehicle maintenance. The reasons why there's going to be an extension to the garage is because the applicant has private vehicles that they wish to maintain, and they require regular maintenance, and they wish to do this on site. Just to confirm that this is going to be personal use only, and this is not going to have any commercial use whatsoever. And so as you can see, here is the existing dwelling. These are the type of vehicles that they're going to be maintaining, and here's the existing garage. And here's just a wider shot. So as you can see, this outbuilding is going to be removed and it's going to make way for the extension here. There's real good screening around the site already, so that will help to screen the extension for neighbouring dwellings, and also as the dwelling is set back from the public highway, it won't be visible. And just to confirm, our highways officer, environmental health officer and the parish council have raised no objection to the application, just subject to conditions including restricting the garage extension to be ancillary to the main dwelling and for personal use only with no commercial activity. And there's also going to be a noise condition imposed as well to help control noise levels to ensure that there is not going to be unsuitable impact on neighbouring dwellings, and to confirm no neighbouring dwellings either raised objection. Thank you.
Thank you. It's just worth mentioning that this item is obviously before you because the agent for this one is a member of the council. Do you have any questions at all? Oh, Councillor Kittle-Morris.
Just a comment, actually, Chairman. As a confirmed petrol head, as I was when I was young, my father built a house in 1954 which had a pit in the garage, which I found very useful for maintaining all my wrecks over the years. So I applaud that. And having seen the number of cars parked outside and the nature of those cars, I would expect that man to need a pit, as long as it doesn't fill with water like mine used to.
Well, can I just say that Matthew's only a young man, so to him they're just a load of old bangers, but to us they're classic cars. Yes, am I true? Yeah, thank you. They're not his sort of cars. Right, okay, guys. No further questions. Then the officer's recommendation on this is one of approval. Can I have a show of hands, please? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to item 6, which is 11B at Wotton. We'll go straight into it. Thank you. We've got Paul Legrice, who's the applicant for Abel's Homes, and Councillor Tina Kiddell, who's the ward rep for this item. Come take seats. Okay. I'll just get the presentation up for you. I will warn you, this is a lengthy presentation. Are you ready, my dear?
Yes, thank you very much.
Far
Chairman.
away.
So we're here for application reference 3PL 2021-0032F. The development as proposed is for the development of a single-storey food store with associated car parking, landscaping, works and 45 dwellings with associated open space and highways infrastructure. Members may recall this application from a previous planning committee where members resolved to grant planning permission on the 2nd of August 2021, and the planning permission was issued on August the 11th 2021. Tesco Stores Limited then submitted a judicial review pre-action protocol letter to challenge this decision on 2 grounds. The 2 grounds were failure to impose the necessary conditions and a breach of habitat regulations. As of the 1st of November 2021, the planning permission was subsequently quashed, and the planning application has therefore been reconsidered, and a further full public consultation was undertaken, including reconsultation of all statutory consultees. With regards to the consultation process throughout the application, initially there was some local objection to the application proposal, including comments from the Town Council to the housing element of this proposal, that is the 45 dwellings. The concerns in this regard, in summary, were the number of dwellings proposed, the existing and future neighbouring property amenity impact, including the closeness of the proposed dwellings to the service areas of the proposed retail, and the potential for noise and disturbance. Also, a lack of local amenities and facilities, car parking and highway impact on ecology, and concerns about drainage and flooding. Comments were also made by 2 parties that retail was not required in this location. However, across all the comments received during the course of the application, there has been strong local support for the Lidl store in this location. There were no statutory objections to the proposals, subject to conditions and/or Section 106 contributions, which are set out in the officer report. Watton Drainage Group had raised some concerns with the application, and these are addressed in the flood risk section of the officer report. Furthermore, concerns have been raised by Martin Robeson Planning Practice or acting on behalf of Tesco Stores Limited throughout the application process. And in summary, these include inappropriate assessment of the town centre impact and effects rising from the proposed retail store, the approach to site selection, the breach of the local plan policy in terms of the loss of a care home, the scale of the retail and the scale of the retail outside the town centre, and a disagreement with the information submitted in support of the application. MRPP on behalf of Tesco also commented last Friday and wish to highlight their previous objections made, and these have been set out in the officer report. With regards to the latest comments made last Friday, they note that Nexus have concluded that the trading impact on our client store will be significantly greater than that assessed by Lidl's consultant Rapley's. The officer report at paragraph 1.12 refers to such an impact as being unlikely to lead to the closure of the Tesco store as part of the consideration of harm that will be caused to the adjacent Watton town centre. MRPP state that that is not the correct test to assess impact on the town centre, and furthermore the reference to competition in paragraph 1.11 is at risk of misinforming decision makers, yourself members, with competition between retailers not being a material planning consideration. They go on to say that the key retail impact issue is the diversion of trade from the edge of the town centre. Tesco store to the much less sustainable out of centre proposal will reduce the substantial footfall that passes from Tesco into Watton town centre, in particular if people park their car at Tesco's car park. Whilst the residents of Watton itself who divert their shopping to a new store Lidl may no doubt continue to use the town centre and its facilities, the diversion of food shopping to such a proposal from those living outside the town centre will mean that in future they'll have much less reason to visit the town centre. They go on to say that the loss of footfall to the town centre will have a significant adverse effect on shops and services there. On the basis of the rigorous assessment undertaken by the council's own consultants, it seems to us that this impact would be at a level where national and local policy expects permission to be refused. And with regards to paragraph 1.11, the last sentence clearly sets out that competition, with regards to those comments from MRPP, members will note from the officer report that we've had Nexus independent retail specialists look at the retail information submitted by the applicants, Rapley's on behalf of the applications, and the comments made by Tesco throughout the application process. We have indeed recontacted Nexus with regards to those latest comments made on Friday, and I'd like officers to note in their deliberations the points made by Nexus in response to those comments. So with regards to the impact on Tesco's, Nexus consider that the potential closure of a store is one of a number of matters which could be considered in determining whether a proposal is likely to have a significant adverse impact on the overarching vitality and viability of the centre. However, this is not the sole consideration, and in coming to our conclusions and recommendation, Nexus consider that a wide range of potential impacts on the town centre as a result of the diverted trade, and have come to the conclusion that they did not consider that these would have a significant adverse impact, even though that they consider that the applicant's diversion assumptions to be underestimated. Their conclusions are set out in paragraph 1.10 of the committee report, and as I go through the presentation, I will go over those conclusions. With regards to competition, they agree with MRPP and that they think this sentence should be removed from the report. So to be clear, that's paragraph 1.11 of the report where it refers to competition. Members, we would like you to discard that sentence in your deliberations. With regards to loss of footfall and link trips, in considering the potential impact of the proposal on the town centre, we also consider the potential loss of link trips between Tesco and the town centre as a result of the diversion. Nexus concluded that they did not think this would be a level which would result in a significant adverse impact. And again, their conclusions are set out in the officer report. So I move on to the analysis of the application by officers. I would remind members at this stage that all planning decisions are made in accordance with section 38(6) of the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act. And this is repeated in paragraph 2 of the NPPF, which requires development to be considered in accordance with adopted planning policies, taking into consideration any other relevant material considerations. So turning to the application in front of you, members, this is the location plan. You can see it clearly outlined in red on the screen in front of you. And I just want to skip to the location plan, if that's okay, members. So you can see that access to the store and the dwellings is off Norwich Road, which is to the south of the application site in Watton. And the access, as you can see, starts at the southern eastern corner of the site and progresses north into the application site, with access to the proposed store branching off to the west. That's the proposed retail store. And to the north of the site, you can see 45 dwellings are proposed. This is on allocated land for housing, as set out in policy WHA2 of the Breckland Local Plan. There is land to the far north of the application site. So you can see on this plan in front of you, this parcel of land to the far north of the application site. And then on this following slide, this purple land is the allocation for housing. So if we can just skip back for you members, apologise for the flicking. This land falls outside the housing allocation. This land below this line, can you see my arrow, is all the housing allocation for Watton. So this land to the far north of the site sits outside the housing allocation. For reference members, in the proposal for the development of the site, as you can see by this land to the far north comprises of no built development and only land for open space and drainage. For these reasons, the additional land is seen to complement the development and is not considered to harm the intrinsic character and beauty of the countryside in accordance with policies Gen 03 and Gen 05 of the local plan. And on this basis, the inclusion of this land is considered acceptable. As set out in the officer report, members, to assess the principal development in this location, there are 3 considerations which are considered to be relevant. The retail impact, the loss of the care home, and the acceptability of residential development in this location. If you bear with me, I'll go through these individually. So the retail impact. Members, you will note that your own policy, EC05 of the Breckland Local Plan, sets out that policies in the local plan will seek to support and enhance the vitality of the district's hierarchy of centres, and they seek to direct floor space requirements in line with the breakdown in the 2017 retail study projections over the plan period. For members' information, this includes 514 net square metres of convenience floor space and 181 gross square metres of food and beverage floor space for Watton. Watton is also identified as a preferred location for food retail, and this policy seeks to direct local provision within town centres. This proposal falls outside the designated town centre for Watton. And in addition to these considerations, Section 7 of the NPPF seeks to support the role that town centres play at the heart of local communities by taking a positive approach to their growth and management and adaptation. A retail impact assessment has been submitted by the applicants, updated following the judicial review and the quashing of the decision. Throughout the retail information submitted with the application, we have had this, as I set out at the beginning, independently assessed by Nexus. Nexus have concluded in summary that with regard to the sequential test submitted with the application, they are unaware of any other site in the area which is in a sequentially preferable location relative to the application site and is available and suitable for the proposed development, and the proposals accord with policy EC07 of the local plan and Section 7 of the NPPF, particularly paragraphs 87 and 88. With regards to retail impact, Nexus concluded that they are unaware of any town centre investment which would be likely to be prejudiced as a consequence of the application proposal, despite having identified a series of issues in respect to the applicant's approach. They have subsequently undertaken their own analysis, and Nexus have taken the view that although the impacts on the existing convenience provision within Watton Town Centre is likely to be significantly higher than that which has been adopted by Rapley's, the applicant's retail consultants, they did not consider that the resultant impacts on the overall vitality and viability of the town centre would be at such a level which could be considerably significantly adverse. Members will note, and this is set out in the report and mentioned previously in Nexus's comments were previously read out, that overall Nexus concluded that the proposed food store would lead to an adverse the proposed store would lead to an adverse impact in respect of existing committed and planned public and private sector investment, that a large proportion of the impact arising from the proposal would occur at Tesco's, higher than predicted within Rapley's applicant submitted report, but this would not be at a level that would result in a significant adverse impact on the town centre as a whole, nor result in significantly less visits to the town centre or result in the closure of Tesco's. Finally, that planning policy is supportive of retail development, which improves local customer choice and accords with sustainable development principles, providing that no significant adverse impacts occur at the town centre locations in accordance with paragraph 91 of the NPPF. Following the quashing of the original planning decision, the applicant submitted a further updated retail statement in January 2022, which provides updated benchmark sales densities for the convenience and comparison element of the proposed store at Norwich Road. This was further assessed by Nexus, who set out their same conclusions still apply, that although the impacts on the existing convenience provision within Wharton Town Centre is likely to be at a higher level than that was been adopted by Rapley's, they did not consider that the resultant impacts on the overall vitality and viability of the town centre would be at a level which would be considered to be significantly adverse. Taking into account all the comments received and that of Nexus's conclusions, on this basis, officers conclude with regard to retail impact, taking in consideration all the comments received, that the proposal complies with both parts of the impact test as set out in policy EC05 of the local plan and paragraphs 87, 88, 90 and 91 of the MPPF. The application proposal satisfies the sequential test and is not likely to cause any significant adverse impacts on investment in the town centre or the vitality or viability of the town centre. Furthermore, the application improves local customer choice and accords with sustainable development principles. The site is located close to Wharton Town Centre, and an additional store in this location will promote customer choice. Officers consider that there will be no significant adverse impacts on Wharton Town Centre, and the proposals accord with policy EC05 of the local plan and section 7, particularly paragraphs 87, 88, 90 and 91 of the MPPF. Moving on, members, with regards to the loss of a care home, members will be aware that policy WHA2 of the Breckland local plan includes the allocation for a 60-bed care home. The officer report also notes that in Breckland and across Norfolk, there is a shortage of care. Therefore, this is a significant material consideration which weighs against the granting of planning permission in this instance. The applicants have submitted evidence to demonstrate that there is not a current need for a care home in Wharton, and this is set out in the officer report and includes the applicants have approached other care home providers and reviewed the existing provision across Wharton. They also indicate that the current local plan policy would allow for delivery of care homes elsewhere in the district, including permission already granted on other sites, and that the inclusion of a care home in this allocation was on the basis that the site was promoted as such, and this is not an overriding factor in this site-specific allocation. The applicants also state that paragraphs 82D and 122 of the MPPF, these are relevant material considerations. For members' information, paragraph 82D states that planning policies should be flexible enough to accommodate needs not anticipated in the plan and to enable a rapid response to changes in economic circumstances. And that paragraph 122 states, planning policies and decisions need to reflect changes in the demand for land, particularly in the interim, prior to updating the plan. Applications for alternative uses on the land should be supported, where the proposed use would contribute to meeting an unmet need for development in that area. The applicants also state it should be considered whether the proposed retail use would contribute to meeting an unmet need for development in this area. At this point, I would like to remind members that obviously we are aware that the local plan is timetabled for an early review and the policies therein. So in conclusion, with regards to the policy and the allocation for a care home in this location, officers consider that looking at policy WHA2 and the development plan as a whole, that this is proposed, that it is proposed that development is in general compliance with policy WA2. And this is set out in detail in the officer report, looking at all the elements of policy WHA2, apologies. The council also considers that other material considerations further support the grant of planning permission in this location. The MPPF is a significant material consideration in the determination of any planning application. And in this regard, although it is considered that the need for a care home in the district does still exist, the applicants have submitted sufficient information to demonstrate that demand in Wharton specifically is not there to meet this need at this time. Having regard to the paragraphs 82D and 122 of the MPPF, the positives of delivering the retail store as identified in the submitted needs assessment and the delivery of housing on an allocated site, these are considered to outweigh the need for a care home in this location at this time. With regard to the residential allocation on the site and the principle of having residential in this location, despite the general local concern about residential in this location, the site is an allocation for at least 45 residential dwellings. As previously explained, the site does not include the allocated site land, does not include land to the north outside of the application to be used. This is to be used as open space and drainage. This has been assessed against policies Gen 03 and Gen 05 as acceptable, given there's no significant development proposed and the open space and drainage would not have an unacceptable impact on the intrinsic beauty and character of the countryside. In addition, the area proposed is to be landscaped, and this is to be conditioned. This will help to also protect the setting of the Grade 2 listed building to the north of the application site. In terms of principal grounds only, officers conclude that policy EC05 of the Breckland Local Plan identifies a need for convenience and food retail in Watton. However, the proposal is for an additional net retail space than that set out in the local plan. The proposal would increase customer choice without having a significant adverse impact on the Watton Town Centre in accordance with paragraph 91 of the NPPF. The applicants and Nexus has demonstrated there is an unmet need for retail in Watton, which is greater than that detailed in the development plan. The assessment of the impact on the vitality and viability of the town centre is not considered to be significantly adverse in accordance with paragraph 91 of the NPPF. The proposal would result in no care home facility being delivered on this site, despite a district need. However, it would not result in the loss of an existing facility, and therefore there is no need to require a replacement facility elsewhere. This need for care will be addressed through the existing local plan policy HOU09 and the local plan review. There is a significant amount of public support for the retail Lidl store in this location, and the applicant has provided evidence to demonstrate there is no need for a care home in Watton specifically at this time. The site is allocated for 45 dwellings, which will be delivered alongside the retail element. In conclusion, therefore, the proposal with specific regard to the loss of the care home is contrary to one aspect of the requirements of policy WHA2, which has been given significant weight in the planning balance and therefore weighs significantly against granting planning permission. However, in considering the compliance with the proposal with all other aspects of policy WHA2 and in considering the compliance with the proposal with other relevant policies in the development plan, it's considered that the proposal complies with the development plan when considering it as a whole. It follows that planning permission should be granted according to section 836 of the Planning Compulsory Purchase Act unless material considerations indicate otherwise. Officers have also considered the other material considerations as previously set out further support the grant of this consent. Therefore, when considering the development plan as a whole, together with the other material planning considerations, the proposals are considered acceptable in principle. Moving on to the detailed assessment of the site members. A transport assessment has been submitted in support of the application, which demonstrates that the surrounding area benefits from an excellent level of pedestrian infrastructure and close proximity to a number of local cycle routes and a frequent bus service. Parking provision will be provided across the site for residential developments through a combination of curtilage parking and separate discrete designated parking areas, meeting the council's adopted car parking standards of a minimum 2 spaces per dwelling. The convenience store development will provide 122 car parking spaces, including 6 disabled parking, 9 parent and child spaces, and 2 electrical charging points. Cycle parking will be close to the store entrance and the delivery bay. Justification for this number of spaces has been submitted by the applicants as a model that Lidl promote elsewhere, and officers agree that this is broadly in line with the council's adopted standards as set out in the officer report. And this has been concluded taking into consideration the accessibility of the site and the net and gross floor space of the retail provision. Members will also note that a travel plan has been prepared in respect of the proposed store, and a series of measures are identified in that travel plan, including a welcome pack for all staff outlining public travel information, on-site information points, on-site cycle parking, and the creation of informal car share scheme. And members will note from the officer report that there is a condition in this regard. Members will also note that the Highways Authority raised no objection to the proposal in terms of highway and safety impact, and on that basis is considered acceptable in this regard. I move on to the character of the area and the character of the application site. And in this regard, I'd like to show members parts of the presentation. So in front of you, you can see the layout of the site, and as I've previously explained, the store sits to the frontage of the site, side on to Norwich Road, which is to the south of the application site in front of you. There's obviously car parking in front of the building to its eastern side, which will be softened through landscaping proposals, which are conditioned as part of the application. You'll also note the access point, which travels north into the application site. There are obviously residential properties that exist to the west of the application site, and there is commercial development that exists to the east of the application site, which members will see in a second is largely side on, and therefore the Lidl store represents a continuation of this arrangement in the street scene. With regards to the Lidl store, the site is laid out as I set out, and as I set out, there will be a condition requiring landscaping to soften the impact on the store, particularly the car parking. I'm going to come back to the affordable housing. So the applicants in the design and access statement have provided some street scene examples of the residential dwellings that are proposed within the development of the site. And we also have some elevations and floor plans showing the particular house types that will be spread across the application site. Members, I'll just skip through these for your information. So as you can see that they're largely of a similar design. A red brick has been used. We're picking up accents of render and timber cladding to add some variation to the site and the street scene. And this is the floor plan for the proposed Lidl store and the elevations that members can see in front of you. I'm just going to show you, oh, sorry, apologies. So as I've set out, the character of the area comprises of a large industrial estate to the east with large buildings predominantly side onto Norwich Road at the frontage of the estate. The Lidl store mimics this formation and would fit in with the existing street scene. There's a row of existing trees separating the industrial estate and the application site, which are to be retained as part of the proposals. The large area of car parking proposed to the eastern side of the store will be softened by landscaping, which is to be conditioned, and the building proposed consists of a contemporary single-storey building with a sloping roof, typical of its retail type. The building, in terms of its positioning on the site, is located furthest away from the listed building to the north so as not to affect its setting. The proposal seeks to provide 45 residential units, including 11 affordable homes. I'm just going to go back to the affordable homes proposal. So members will see in front of them the blue hash line on the plan just to the north of the Lidl store. That is the location for the proposed 11 affordable homes. The scheme proposes a mixture of detached and semi-detached units, and the affordable units are within 2 clusters either side of an access road to the north of the retail store. The Housing Enable Officer has previously raised concerns about the clustering of affordable units. However, it's considered that 11 affordable homes is a very small number and that a cluster of this size would not materially affect the character of the area. And it is to be noted that the houses are indivisible from the rest of the design of the application site. The applicant expressed that given the amount of affordable housing required, then it would be easier to manage by a housing association as a cluster than spread across the site. The Housing Enable Officer has been addressed on this basis and agrees that Planning Permission could not be reasonably refused on this basis. Excuse me. The proposed materials for the houses are predominantly red brick with some in prominent locations to be finished in white render. Areas of natural timber cladding are also incorporated as seen from the elevations. Roofs will be finished with red and dark grey flat pan tiles, and these materials are clearly acceptable given the context of the surrounding area. The development would equate to a density of approximately 19 dwellings per hectare, which we consider reflects the surrounding context and is in accordance with policy WHA2. Members will note that the plans have been amended during the course of the application in conversation with the applicant and the case officer to ensure that usable areas of open space are provided within the site, and that key spaces are framed by properties with dual elevations to protect the character of the area and provide natural surveillance. The proposal is to provide approximately 0.33 hectares of open space on the site, and this exceeds the requirement in policy ENV04 by approximately 640 square metres. The open space is all to be play space and is to be provided in 3 distinct areas across the site. The frontage of the site to the east and central boundary will, those 3 areas are the frontage of the site, so the central eastern boundary, which will complement the existing tree belt to the eastern boundary, which is to be retained, and that land to the north of the site, which actually lays outside of the allocation. No development is proposed to the north of this side outside the allocation, and a landscaping can be conditioned to help protect the setting of the listed building to the north. The proposal includes no outdoor sports provision. In this regard, the size and the scale of the site is acknowledged. The applicant and officers have contacted the Town Council, who have responded that at present the Town Council has no scheme and no deliverable scheme planned for outdoor sport. And on this basis, there is no requirement to provide open space or a contribution towards outdoor sport in accordance with policy ENV04 of the local plan. I've already mentioned the listed building to the north. A heritage impact assessment was submitted with the application, which identifies Ruckles Hall, a grade 2 listed building located approximately 120 metres to the northeast of the site, behind a row of established trees. Also, there are some former RAF buildings which are considered to be non-designated heritage assets adjacent to the site in this northern location. Due to the existing trees, there are no views from or towards Ruckles Hall or its associated outbuildings from the site. In respect of the setting of this listed building, outbuildings and the former RAF buildings, their setting has been significantly changed by the construction of the 20th century industrial units in front of the buildings and the housing on the former airfield. The council's historic building officer has said that given the current setting, the location of the proposed development, its relationship with existing development and significant mature planting, it is not considered from a historic built environment perspective that the proposed development will adversely affect the setting of any of the identified heritage assets to the extent that it will harm significant, and he raises no objections to the proposals on this basis. Having regard to section 16 of the MPPF, specifically paragraphs 197 and 199 and policy EC07 of the local plan, great weight has been attached to the significance of preserving historic assets, and it is recognised that proposals would result in less than substantial harm to their setting by the provision of residential dwellings. However, any harm is outweighed by the public benefits of providing housing and retail in this location. There is also potential that heritage assets with archaeological interest will be present at the site and their significance will be adversely affected by the proposed development. The Historic Environment Service has therefore suggested a condition. Therefore, any harm to archaeological assets can be suitably mitigated against by the application of a planning condition, and this is proposed within the report. With regards to amenity, a number of concerns have been raised in the representations with regards to development adjacent to the west of the application site. The majority of dwellings to the west have long rear gardens and will be over 30 metres away, and existing dwellings will be over 24 metres away from the new convenience store. At the frontage of the site, the proposed store will sit adjacent to a row of 2-storey terrace properties. These will be approximately 6 metres, the store will be approximately 6 metres between this, away from this, and there is some risk of amenity impact here, but this is to the rear of the store where no windows or deliveries are taking place. The dwellings likely to be affected already front onto Norwich Road, which is a busy road in terms of traffic and noise, and there is existing vegetation that butts the walls of this dwelling closer than the existing store, which means that shading already occurs. It is not considered, therefore, an objection on amenity grounds could be substantiated on this basis. Concerns over noise and disturbance during construction are to be managed by a condition requiring a construction management plan, and with regards to future dwellings adjacent to delivery of the store, conditions with regards to acoustic barriers, hours of works, lighting, noise and materials disposal are also proposed. On this basis, it is not objected to in terms of amenity by either officers or our environmental health team. With regards to flood risk, infiltration as a form of surface water drainage for the proposed development has been deemed not possible. However, permeable paving has been incorporated into all driveways for the residential units, and in extreme events, discharge will be into a pipe and discharged into the Anglian water sewage, which then discharged into a storage lagoon to the north. The storage lagoon is to be adopted by Anglian Water and has been designed incorporating enhanced flow routing and biodiversity features. This is in accordance with the Anglian Water SUDS requirements to satisfy their adoption criteria. The proposed adoptable pond has been designed to discharge into the existing water course by a hydro brake flow control before entering a ditch that then connects to the existing network. With regards to foul water management, it is proposed to construct an adoptable foul water network subject to the Section 104 agreement with Anglo Water. The LFA and Anglia Water raised no objections to the proposals on these grounds and have recommended conditions which will be applied. Members will note from the beginning of my report that the Watton Drainage Group have made comments to the application. These are set out in the officer report, but with regards to point 1, this is a civil matter and involves land outside the application site. Points 2, 3 and 4, maintenance is required as part of the submitted and conditioned flood risk and drainage assessments. Points 5 and 6 cannot be conditioned as we cannot require third-party land to comply with conditions. And point 7 is not a material consideration in the determination of this application. On the basis of the information submitted and the no objections received from the LLFA and Anglian Water, we are satisfied that an acceptable flood risk and drainage scheme can be achieved for this site. With regards to ecology, members will note that Tesco's grounds of review identified a failure to carry out appropriate assessment for this site. The applicants have therefore submitted a shadow habitats regulations assessment, which sets out that there are 2 European sites within a 5-kilometre radius from the proposed development site. These include the Breckland SPA and the Fern Special Area of Protection. The applicants state, at this distance from these European sites, it is reasonable to screen out direct impacts resulting from the proposed development, even in the absence of any suitable alternative natural green space or public open space within the development itself. Wotton is a major conurbation, with access to a number of parks and other public open space that would satisfactorily absorb any increases in the population. And recreational impacts can be effectively ruled out of the assessment. The 1-kilometre grid scale in which the proposed Able Homes development is located is approximately 70% urban development, and the site is located immediately adjacent to the B1108 Norwich Road. As such, there is a lack of suitable habitat for stone curlews within the grid square, and it's not likely to be functional for the SPA. Excuse me. The development of 45 dwellings alongside a new supermarket within the site is not considered to result in likely significant effects to any European protected sites when considered in isolation. This conclusion is based on the size of the development, the distance from any European protected sites or extendable buffers supporting functionally linked habitat, and the urban nature of the development being infill within the town of Wotton, fully enclosed by other residential and commercial development and fully screened from the European site or indeed any habitat which might be considered functional. With regards to the recreational impact from the development, there is open space provision within the site and in Wotton to increase the pressure. And officers have spoken to the applicants in light of the comments made by Simon Wood at the start with regards to the introduction of the GI RAMs and the charging, and the applicants have agreed to pay the GI RAMs contribution through a unilateral undertaking, which will be submitted prior to the determination of this application in the event members agree to approve planning permission today. Members will also note from the officer report, the council has taken a advice from our ecologists in this regard, who state the shadow HRA provides a reasoned justification for the conclusion of no likely significant effects and is considered fit for purpose. Officers have also carried out an appropriate assessment and have concluded that the application will not adversely affect the integrity of Breckland SPA in accordance with paragraph 182 of the MPPF and policies EMV03 and WHA2 of the Breckland local plan, also taking into consideration regulation 63 of the habitat regulations. In addition to the shadow HRA, the applicant submitted a preliminary ecological appraisal with regards to the western boundary trees to be removed. These are considered to have no value as for roosting habitat for bats. The trees and scrub within the site are considered to provide opportunities for nesting birds, and the ecological appraisal identifies a number of mitigation measures, including new grassland, hedgerows and tree planting for habitat creation and landscaping. Natural England and our ecologists have been consulted and raised no objections to the proposals or the additional information provided. Previously, our ecologists suggested a native species hedgerow with standard trees, and the landscaping plans have been updated to show the native hedgerow along the western boundary of the site. On this basis, the impact on ecology is considered acceptable. With regards to contamination, following further site investigation, our contamination land officer has raised no objections to the applications subject to a condition. Members have noted my comments with regards to trees. Please note one category B group containing 29 trees located towards the western boundary of the application site will be removed to facilitate the development. An oak tree and the southernmost 5 trees are subject to tree preservation orders, and these will be retained and protected throughout the development process. In order to mitigate the loss of trees on site, a minimum of 29 new heavy standard trees will be planted, and there are conditions within the application in this regard. Please note our tree officer raises no objection to the removal of the trees on the western boundary due to their poor quality and the appropriate mitigation planting, which will be subject to conditions. Members will note from the officer report that subject to members granting planning permission today, we have a signed section 106 agreement, which requires 25% affordable housing, open space, a maintenance contribution, education contributions, a library contributions, and also there are conditions with regards to fire hydrants and a travel plan. With regards to planning conditions, which are also subject to compliance if members were to agree planning permission today, these have been listed at the end of the officer report and updated to include conditions as suggested by Nexus with regards to restrictions on the food store following the JR made by Tesco's and the subsequent quashing of planning permission. And members, in this regard, these are conditions 19 to 21 in your officer report. So just before I conclude, I'll just show you the planning officer presentation and the photographs of the site for your information. So I've shown you a couple of times the layout of the site, the street scene examples. I've also showed you the elevations and floor plans, and I've set out in detail how these comply with the character of the area, the elevations and floor plans of the proposed Lidl store. Members, this is the site previously that you were showing at the previous presentation, just to show that tree belt, which is on the western boundary, which is to be removed, and the existing commercial development, which sits to the east of the application site, and the residential development, which sits to the west of the application site. This is the view back to Norwich Road on the gap between the proposed application site, the Lidl store, and the existing residential dwellings. And then we have some site photos for you, just panning across the application site. Members will note that development has started on the site. You'll see and the far distance, those are the commercial buildings and the tree belt, which is to be retained on the eastern boundary of the site. And I've just got some site images panning across the site of the residential development, which is taking place. So just to conclude, members, the proposal with specific regard to the loss of the care home is contrary to one aspect of the requirements of policy WHA2 of the Brecon local plan adopted in 2019, which has been given significant weight in the planning balance and therefore weighs against granting of planning permission. However, in considering compliance of the proposal with all other aspects of policy WHA2 and in considering compliance of the proposal with the relevant policies in the development plan, it is considered that the proposal complies with the development plan when taking it into consideration as a whole. It follows that planning permission should be granted according to section 38(6) of the Planning Compulsory Purchase Act unless material considerations indicate otherwise. The council considers that other material planning considerations, officers consider that other material planning considerations further support the grant of this consent. Therefore, when considering the development plan as a whole, together with other material planning considerations, officers consider the proposals are acceptable. The provision of housing on an allocated site is given significant weight in favour of the proposals. The land outside the allocation and settlement boundary is to be used for a drainage lagoon and open space, and therefore will not affect the intrinsic beauty and the character of countryside in accordance with policies Gen 03 and Gen 05 of the local plan. Matters of highways, access, parking, character, design, heritage, amenity, flood risk, contamination and ecology have all been assessed, and the development is considered acceptable and compliant with policy in this regard. Subject to conditions, a section 106 agreement, the unilateral undertaking that I've previously mentioned, the proposal is considered in general accordance with the development plan when considering it as a whole. And this is also taken into say any other relevant material considerations. And on this basis, the application has been recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I don't think I've ever sat through one so long, but it had to be done. It had to be done. Okay, we've got our speakers now. Councillor Cadell, would you like to go first or last? Okay, thank you. Mr. Paul Lacroix, please, who's the applicant on behalf of Able Homes. 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. I'm actually not going to need 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm here to speak in support of your officer's recommendation of approval on the application, and really just to reaffirm that there are no statutory objections to the proposed scheme. The scheme's looking to deliver 42 new homes in accordance with the local plan allocation, together with a new Lidl store for which there is significant local support. I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have, but I'll leave it at that because I think Rebecca's covered everything else very well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cadell, please.
Thank you. I think you all know what I'm going to say. It's only what I said before, but basically I am writing and speaking once again in favour of this development. I have represented Watton for many years, and I can honestly say that the town has grown enormously and rapidly in those years. So much so that we need another supermarket desperately in the town. This proposal has unanimous support from the townspeople, and there's not been a day gone by without a comment of when is Lidl going to open. Right till this morning, in fact, I got one. All of the shops are at the western end of town with Tesco's in the middle. Where this is proposed, it is more towards Carbrook in the east. There are a great deal of families and new houses at this end of the town. It is unfair of any corporation to exclude many of these people from being able to access a nearer shop. Many of these people do not have a car, and in these days of rising costs, residents do not always want to get in their car if they have one to go shopping. So it makes sense to have another choice nearer to them. Many of the other market towns have more than one supermarket. To have more than one encourages people to travel to the town as a destination, rather than a quick stop just to get a few items. Tesco's in Watton will benefit from this application being approved. Of that, I'm sure. More people will come. We all know that what you can't get in one shop, you travel 2 minutes to get to the other one, which is why I come to Dereham or Attleborough or anywhere else to do my shopping. Stopping this development will be the death knell for Watton, as many and more people will just travel to the other towns for their shopping. It will have a catastrophic effect on the smaller traders in the high street. People, when they go shopping, like myself, often make an afternoon of it, do the shop, then grab a coffee in the town. Where these two supermarkets will be positioned, it is perfect for such a trip. Lidl first, pop to Tesco's, drop into the high street for extras and a coffee. Opposing the development will ruin the choices of our residents and limit our opportunities. The houses too are needed. There is a shortage of housing stock, particularly in Watton, where there is a huge workforce, and also people moving out of the cities looking for a quieter, more rural life. Having a supermarket on their doorstep will save the crossroads in the town a massive headache of queuing traffic, especially at school times, as people will shop closer to home rather than travel into town, and this will alleviate pressure on an already overloaded road network. And in summarisation, I think Watton needs more infrastructure, and this is the start. Thank you.
Okay, it's open to questions from members. Councillor Bowes, Councillor Kyburn.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I'm pleased to hear that Tesco's concerns about the high street, which were rather spurious, have been dealt with and proved unfounded. And I have just some questions for the applicant. Firstly, what are you going to do to help biodiversity to mitigate the construction of the building on what was grazing land in the light of the energy crisis, and to reduce reliance on fossil fuels? For example, will you be putting solar panels on the roof? I couldn't see from the plan. You know, if that will provide the double benefit to a growing town of another supermarket and helping to lower energy bills in the long term. And hopefully it will make the application more favourable to Tesco. After all, every little helps. Will you be providing Swift bricks across the site, and who will maintain the play space? Because I understand, if I'm correct, that Watton Town Council have just pulled out of their agreement to maintain the space at Hares Green. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'll start at the beginning. So in terms of solar PV, yes, that is on every property on the site. Every home that we build is EPC-A rated for energy efficiency, and that is a combination of PV, air source heat pumps for the main heating source, and also higher levels of insulation throughout the property. So it's putting fabric first to make sure that they are the most energy efficient homes that they can be. In terms of ecological improvements, yes, Swift bricks are included together with sparrow terraces and back boxes as well. So again, that's a common suite of biological enhancements that we put across our sites. So that's that side of it. In terms of the open space, the 106 is clear. There's three options we have to approach in order. Breckland District Council, followed by the Town Council. If neither of those wish to adopt, then it will go into a management company that will be owned by the residents on site. So that's the process that we would need to go through. And I suspect, based on recent conversations, that may well be option 3.
Thank you. Councillor Kybird. Oh, sorry.
So will there be solar panels on the supermarket building? Because that was really my question. I know you do put them on your housing, but it seems to me to make sense that we should be putting solar panels on large buildings like supermarkets and care homes, and it seems silly not to. And I'd like there to be in good condition that there is, if possible, if you're not putting them on.
I don't disagree with anything you've just said, but I don't know the answer to that in relation to Lidl, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kybird and then Councillor Gilbert.
Yes, thank you. I presume the length of the presentation was to ensure that we have considered all material matters. On which subject? The 25% section 106 social housing, just to show I was listening, has that been subjected to a viability assessment?
No, because 25% is in accordance with current policy. So we wouldn't ask for a viability assessment unless it was less than that.
Councillor Gilbert, please. Oh, sorry, just one sec. Solicitor wishes to come in.
Yes, indeed, the length of the presentation was to ensure that all material planning considerations were dealt with, but also to emphasize that non-material planning considerations, like competition between retailers, were not considered.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Gilbert, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I start by congratulating Rebecca on that very, very thorough report? I think you've covered all bases there. But on the retail assessment, I think this development will actually keep people in Watton and will enhance the high street, because I know people who drive to Dereham to do their main shop, go into the town, have a coffee, go to the pub or something, and they don't visit the high street unless they have to. So this will enhance the high street, and I'm fully in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from members? Councillor Wilkinson and then Councillor Kittle-Morris.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to ask Mike if the I don't know if it was mentioned. I might have read it in here. The Tesco judicial review, that was dismissed, was it, on the last application?
No, it wasn't dismissed. We submitted to judgment, and an order was made quashing the previous planning permission that was granted by this committee, as a result of which the original application is re-triggered. So that is why it comes before us today, because the decision that was given last time, the permission, was set aside by the High Court on a consent order.
Okay, Councillor Kittle-Morris, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just to follow on from that, I presume that all the considerations, I mean, it's a wonderful report that obviously Rebecca wrote and nearly died trying to present. More water, Rebecca, I think. I presume all the things that Tesco were concerned about through the legal action have actually been addressed with this, and they won't actually be able to come back on any of the matters which we were taken to task with previously.
You can rest assured that all the original issues raised and accepted by us have been carefully considered, and that we have gone to great lengths to ensure that the officer report, the recommendations are all lawful. As for guaranteeing that there is not going to be another JR, I'm afraid I can never do that.
Okay, Councillor Wilkinson.
Yeah, I'll just come back on that. Like Mike said, could happen again. And under those circumstances, why, can I ask, why did Abels go ahead and start building the houses before the permissions went through?
That is an irrelevant consideration. If I go back to the basics of actual planning law, there is no legal requirement for people to get permission. If they wish to, they can start and they can build. However, obviously that risks enforcement. The fact that there may or may not have been development on site with or without a planning permission is not a relevant consideration for today.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Any further questions at all? No? Oh. Sorry, Councillor Kittle-Morris.
Just one thing, I presume, I haven't read the conditions that you're putting on it, but I presume those that were recommended in para 7.11 were going to be included.
Sorry, Mark, we were talking. We weren't
in
listening to you
terms
at all.
of, I think Tesco has put in an objection to make sure that the little store was going to be a little store and not two little stores or one Aldi and whatever. So those conditions in para 711 are going to be put in place.
Those conditions which formed an accepted part of Tesco's grounds for JR have been very carefully considered, and they will be introduced into any planning permission should you resolve to grant planning permission today.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure which one member mentioned, oh, it might have been Councillor Cadell. First of all, Claire's item about the panels on the store itself, you said that's down to Lidl's, did you say?
Yes, I said I wasn't aware whether or not Lidl were putting them on their roof.
Yeah, so that'll be something that'll come up with. Yes, please, because otherwise I'm going to get that bit confused.
Sorry, I just wanted members to be clear that the vote will be on the basis of Lidl not having solar panels on the roof. So there's no requirement in this current permission for solar panels on the roof. There's no requirement in your policy for solar panels, and therefore your vote will be on the basis of there not being solar panels. If subsequently Lidl choose to put them on, there is permitted development for that, or they may need to make a new planning application, which will be considered on its own merits. But I just wanted to be clear, members, that your vote today will be without a condition requiring solar panels on the roof of Lidl specifically.
Yeah, because I was also quite when Mr. Legrice's presentation is that there is only 2 charging points within the site, and the garage at Necton has got 8. So I found 2 wasn't a great deal for the future anyway, but that's down to them really. Another point I just wanted to raise was that I believe it was Councillor Goodell who mentioned the fact of currently only having 1 supermarket, and most of the other towns have got quite a number. I know of 3 in Swaffham and definitely 2 in Attleborough, masses in Dereham and masses in Thetford. So it does seem that sorry? Fakenham don't count, we don't even know where Fakenham is. But just that, you know, it does seem as if we're sort of trying to level up the town in our process. Anyway, everyone's had right, no. Yeah.
Competition between retailers is not a material consideration.
Yeah. Yes, it was a concept. Right, we're going to go to the vote. Your officer's recommendation on this is one of approval, which is subject to conditions and the relevant section 106 agreement, plus a unilateral undertaking. We're added to that as well. So could I have a show of hands for the approval, please? And that's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Okay, we move to item 12, which is applications determined by the Executive Director of Place, which is there for your information. And item 3, you have an appeals summary, also there for your information. And with that, this big long meeting is now about to close at 11:30. Thank you.